So I make that 11 minutes past 2, so I think we'll get started. Welcome everybody, if you just joined us, to the Development Counts Dissemination Conference. Tanya, is there anything that you want to say before I start with introductions? No, she's just disappeared. Okay, so I'd like to welcome you all to the last panel session of this conference. As advertised, unfortunately, I was just saying that Heather Krause, who's founder and CEO of We All Count, unfortunately is unable at the last minute to be with us. That's due to a mix-up in time zones. So there you go. Even a data conference can get the data mixed up. You have to ask the right questions. I'd like to introduce our panelists. Will Sayers, who's going to speak first. Will says that he started playing games on his BBC Micro when he was 7, which got him interested in programming, and he became particularly interested in artificial intelligence while studying at university. So that led to a doctorate and into applying optimization and AI to engineering problems. And he's now the course leader of a new Masters in Data Science that has begun here at the University of Gloucestershire. He'll be followed by Miguel Angel Cecilia. I hope I've got this pronunciation right, Miguel. Miguel is originally from Madrid in Spain. He has a degree in computer science, and he's worked both as a lecturer and for several companies in the IT sector. He's now with a PhD in computer science. He's a lecturer at the University of Alcalá and a virtual tutor at the Open University of Catalonia. And finally, Iñaki Ucar is a postdoctoral fellow at the UC3M Santander Big Data Institute. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And the theme for this last session is, having discussed some of the issues to do with the data revolution, we're now moving on to the implications for teaching data skills in the university and beyond, which was one of the key issues that the Development Counts project was very keen to inform. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we've learned the right lessons as far as the panelists are concerned. And if you stay on till the end, you may hear more about some of the materials and the outputs of the project. So we'll begin with Will, if you're ready.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Kenny, for the introduction. Yeah, so thinking about the data revolution and whether it's had implications for teaching of data skills at the University of Gloucestershire. Well, obviously, as a start, we've started this master's, as Kenny was saying. We also have 2 undergraduate courses. One is a level 6 data scientist apprenticeship, and one is a BSc in applied artificial intelligence, which cover similar areas. All 3 of those courses sit within the games technologies area at the university, which gives us access to some nice computers and things to use there. So I started teaching in these data related topics kind of after the data revolution had started, because I think it started probably, deep learning kicked off sometime around 2011, 2012, really started to gain momentum, and then this began to phase more into the public consciousness probably around 2015, around that kind of time. I've been working around the edges of the field for a little bit longer. I developed an interest in AI on my undergrad, and I think in recent years, one of the biggest changes that I've seen in the teaching is that people have become far more aware of the ethical issues in the field. I heard the previous speaker start to talk about some of this as well. I think these ethical issues take a lot of different forms, from dealing with data in unbiased ways, which is slightly more complex than just being a decent person, although that's a good start, all the way to legal requirements and things like that. So I've made sure that those are included in our courses, and I think a lot of courses around the world in general, and also within the courses that I've worked with over the last couple of years, are starting to include these elements as well and really look deeply into them, which is a positive step, but there's always room to go further and try and teach these things more. I think we've also changed the way that we teach things. So we tend to move on from, certainly in my area at least, we're not doing so much of the large lectures, students listening, that kind of thing. We're doing lectures in computer labs. We're also more often doing sort of short 20, 30-minute sessions, followed by a practical session, followed by some more theory, things like that, trying to help improve the learning of technical skills, which can be quite difficult to digest, because normally there's quite a small amount of theory to teach, but it's got quite a lot of depth to it. So I think that's made a big difference as well. In terms of who I'm working with or who I'm teaching more for me, what's been really interesting about starting the MSc is that it's specifically designed as a conversion course for people who maybe don't have such a background in artificial intelligence or data science or computers. And I get a really broad range of students from all kinds of areas. And I think that's becoming more common, because although the deep technical skills are kind of perhaps not required, but are very, very helpful indeed if you want to work in data science or in data cognate areas. But also, as the last speaker was saying as well, it's hard for data scientists to work in glorious isolation, right? Or people who work with data at all. You generally need to work with domain experts, people who know about the kind of data sets that you're working with. And one of the nice things about someone who comes from perhaps a different field is they may well have insights, and if that's the kind of field they want to work with data in, there's a really great strength there in that they can potentially be both the domain expert and the data expert. I think it's important that they don't underestimate the technical skills they need to pick up, but it's certainly great to see people coming in who can use their skills from elsewhere within the data field. Just to touch briefly on how the pandemic touched it, and then I'll finish up. I think a lot of the teaching moving online was probably smoother for us than it was for some, because we were already recording and live streaming lectures before the pandemic kicked off. But it's been really interesting to see how some students have responded extremely positively to online teaching and to one-to-one interactions with teachers, and others would much prefer to get back into the classroom. I think we haven't quite reached the point where we're using online technologies so smoothly that we could replace everything that's interactive, but it's definitely demonstrated really nicely that there's a place for that, and that it's possible to do that even in really technical domains like the data domains. So that's me.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Will. Fantastic timekeeping. So next we have Miguel.
Yeah. Shall I, can I share a couple of slides?
Yes, sure. Please do.
Yeah. I don't know if that's possible from. Yeah.
That should be, I think. Yeah, great.
Are you seeing my slides now?
Yes, we have that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. Thanks for having me here. I will go very quick because I'm also the director of the Master of Data Science at my university. But today I wanted to share with you a couple of minutes about the outcome of this Erasmus Plus project that ended in 2020, and it was called Dataset. But that's education and data skills for entrepreneurs. It's for business or future business owners. So it has nothing to do with university courses, and it's typically to be delivered in an incubator, a business school, or inside a university in some sort of entrepreneurial school or something like that, but that's not a regular university course. And this is why the first thing is that, of course, the students are in a very different context from universities. And the point of departure is this thing that you can see here, and probably most of you recognize that this is a business model canvas. This is something like the de facto standard in almost every business school across the globe nowadays. It's part of a methodology called Lean Startup. And it's basically a way in which entrepreneurs put together in a single page all the essentials of their business model. And the problem that we have experienced when entrepreneurs want to start a business that is related to data, artificial intelligence, analytics, all this kind of stuff that we label as data businesses, is that at some points in this canvas that they are doing typically in business schools, they struggle with some concepts. They struggle with, and the struggle comes because they don't really, the entrepreneurs do not necessarily understand what's data science, what's training a model, how this training or this metrics from a model can be connected then to profitability or to business value. So the project was about trying to fill that gap from, an entrepreneur that knows about some business idea, but they need to connect the points to really make sense of their business model. And that's the outcome. The final outcome, I'm not going through all the details in this introduction. All of this is in the web page of the project. I can share also with you the slides. But the idea is that the entrepreneurs come with an initial business canvas and then go refining that canvas in several stages. So first, they reason about the data they need, their volume, if it is batch or online or whatever. Then they go to an analytic canvas, and then they have to reason about, the quality in terms of regular machine learning metrics and how these metrics connect to business outcomes. And then in a later stage, and maybe optionally, they go from the minimal viable product or from something that can be something like a prototype, even if it is low quality, to thinking on one side about data ethics and regulation, which is in many cases a barrier or a problem that they have to tackle with. And also in other dimension, they have to deal with the cost structure, which is typically not trivial if you are using big data. And it's difficult to make something like reasonable assumptions about data usage and how much do they need to pay on the cloud or Elasticsearch services in Amazon or whatever. And that's also a problem for them. And that's basically the idea. So the students are rather unconventional. We take the typical tool from business schools, and then we adapt that to data businesses. Just to give you an idea of the kind of canvases they use, these are something like complementary canvases specific to data. This is, for example, to reason about the volumes of data and the kind of treatments. That's another one. These are things that you can find in the web, but we are simply putting them together into a single framework. And this is now reasoning about the typical machine learning stuff, so that they go a little bit deeper into these concepts. And there is also something like data ethics canvases that make the reason about the privacy and ethical uses or abuses of the data or something like that. So the final outcome of all of this is that they have something like an enhanced method of coming to a reasonable canvas without this potential business owner have the need of becoming themselves data scientists. So they have to know enough to make sensible business decisions, and maybe in a later stage they will hire the data scientist. That's all from my side. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Miguel, can I ask you referred to material that's available online. Would it be possible for you to post into the chat for everybody the link to the program?
Sure, I'm putting the web page right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that.
Then you have the web page.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Okay, the next, I see Rachel has appeared. Is there something you want to say, Rachel, or are you just...
No, I was just going to tell you when you were on mute just now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. So our next, in fact, our final for this panel, our final speaker is Iñaki. Iñaki, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. So as Kenny said, I'm postdoctoral fellow at Big Data Institute at University Carlos III. I'm here to talk about our experience teaching data skills at university, and what led us to a new master's degree that starts on September this year on computational social science. So basically, as you already said, the increased integration of technology into our lives has created unprecedented volumes of data on everyday human behavior, and everybody, of course, is thinking about social media. But I would say that nowadays half of our lives happen online, like the thing that we are doing right now, right? And this leaves a trace, obviously. So big data, as well as small and medium data, is becoming increasingly popular in all disciplines. And traditionally, we had like two separate domains, like statistics, then there's computer science, right? So statistics basically were invented to work with small data, and was heavily mathematically oriented, so depends heavily on mathematical results to robustly work with the small data. Then computer science came in and kicked in, right? With computers, internet, much more data on the table, and new tools that didn't require those robust mathematical methods, right? You just have a computer and you can unfold the random processes with this computer. And over time, well, obviously in university, we had this clearly separated structure in our statistics departments and computer science departments that were completely different and separate. We still have those structures in place, but we started to converge, right? And converge towards what we call nowadays data science. Data science, the first data scientists were either statisticians that were self-taught in engineering and computing, or computer scientists, engineers that were self-taught as statisticians. The university and Carlos III, we started to fill this gap a few years ago. We already have, for instance, a degree in data science that is quite new. In fact, I think this year is producing our first graduates. So in this degree, basically the idea is to build up profiles in that intersection directly, right? So have profiles that are that has expertise in both data science, computer science and statistics. And we also have a couple of master's degrees for a number of years now on big data and statistics. One is heavily oriented towards the mathematical part, and the other one is towards the computational part, right? But they both are still oriented toward hard STEM profiles. When I said hard STEM, I mean mathematics, physics, engineering, because, you know, biology is also considered STEM, but we can all agree that they don't have the same background in terms of mathematics and computing. And then we have another branch, which is social science, which a social scientist is an expert in studying human behavior and finding patterns in data about population groups, like economists, anthropologists, political scientists, and so on and so forth. But then, at least in Spain, social scientists have been traditionally very qualitative people, right? So there's another gap there. We started to fill the gap on statistics and computer science. Now we have still another island of social scientists that they have a little bit of expertise in statistics to work with small data, but they don't have access to the medium and big data sets that are available nowadays online. So our idea was to fill also this gap. Already in many countries around the world, like there are a number of master's degree already in Europe and also some of them in United States, for instance, but there was nothing in Spain about this. So we decided to fill this gap with a new master's degree in computational social science. And a computational social scientist, of course, there are many of them already, but traditionally they have been like physicists that learned social science rather than social scientists that learned some computation and statistics, right? So we are looking at the other side of this balance. So a computational social scientist is a social scientist that is somehow interested in digital data and is comfortable with modern computational techniques to analyze medium to big data sets, which means that data scientists are still the ones that are have the expert knowledge in statistics and or computing. But still, when you have an interdisciplinary group, you still need a common background, because as a social scientist don't know what is possible, then even if they have the expert knowledge, they don't know how to, what possibilities are there, and the interdisciplinary group doesn't work. So that's the purpose of this master's degree. And about the, so about the pandemic, well, we have a similar experience than William. So basically this took us by surprise, and we have been, dealing with it in the best way we could. And there are mixed experiences there, and we hope we can adjust our teaching methodologies more to the new online methods.
Fantastic and excellent timekeeping. I think we've got 3 models of timekeeping there. Thank you very much to all 3.